This is one of those things I don't get about Christian people. Even this morning, we're rejoicing, hands are raising, and if you don't understand what that's about, when he says rejoice, you'll be like, so deny everything that's happening in my life. Is that what you're saying? Pretend. Put on a pretend mask that everything's okay. It's actually not. It's actually in the middle of my situation, I rejoice because, and we'll show you why in a moment, because I'm processing my realities around me with a greater reality who's over all of it and who's inside of me and who's walking with me in the middle of it. And there's some scriptures that I just want to touch and remind you of this morning, why we do what we do when we worship, not just on Sunday, but on Tuesday and Monday in the middle of the night and when you're turning your car radio on, whatever it might be, or you're listening to Spotify. Psalm 100 verse 4 says this, I will enter his gates with thanksgiving, and I will enter his courts with praise. In other words, there's a space that I enter into that is accessed through, and you've heard me say this, the key that opens the door to the manifest presence of God that you sense and know and experience is thanksgiving and praise. So you can be living in a place that's not peaceful. You can be living in a place that's anxious. You can be living in a place that's you don't know what to do. And as we begin to turn the key to access the presence of God through thanksgiving and through praise, we enter into a different realm. Your spirit man, the person that's really you, the one that's going to spend eternity somewhere, begins to access and be into the very presence of God. And what happens there? In Psalm 16:11, it says, in his presence is fullness of joy. So in other words, before I feel joy, I begin to be rejoicing, and I open the door and I enter into a new realm of joy, and I can begin to, why is that important? Because the joy of the Lord is your strength. So I need strength. I need some peace. How do I get there? I will enter his gates with thanksgiving. I will enter his courts with praise, and his presence is fullness of joy. At his right hand is pleasures evermore. And in that place of joy, I find strength to face today. That's why rejoicing is important. All that was for free. But how do you do that? It doesn't even make sense in one sense, but you can do it from this perspective. Genesis 50 and verse 20, Joseph, who had been betrayed by his own brothers, been sold into slavery, been forgotten in prison, all kinds of things. And at the end of it all, his brothers are quivering in fear. Is he going to kill us? Joseph had been through a whole process, was now raised to be the ruler of Egypt, number 2 in the kingdom. And he said, what you intended for evil in my life, God has turned around for good and for the saving of many lives. Romans 8:28 says that God causes all things to work together for the good of those who love him. In other words, even when we don't see it, God is working. Even when we don't know it, God is working. And we lift up a sacrifice of praise, and we begin to change our perspective because God suddenly comes into the middle of our situation, and we find an inner peace that passes all understanding. That's greater than anything. Meditation is incredibly important in that. Most of us are experts at meditation. We call it worry. We're experts at meditation. We think about and worry about, what about that? What am I going to do about that? I don't know, how is this going to work? And that's all meditation is. So I'm just inviting you and giving you an invitation to change your meditation, what you meditate on, and you will change the outcome that's happening inside of you.